Hola, hola.
Hello, everyone. Please be seated, and we're going to begin with the Guillermo Cano Award ceremony.
Por favor, vayan pasando los que están afuera y los que están adentro.
Could you please take a seat? We're about to start the session before the last, the award ceremony for the Guillermo Cano Award.
También les recomendamos que vayan tomando los...
Please get hold of the headsets for simultaneous translation. Unless you know Russian, you will need them.
Devices, because we're going to be hearing, unless you speak Russian, you're probably going to need it. We're going to be starting in about 10 minutes, so get your headsets for the translation and be seated when you can.
Para, ¿quién está? Ah, pero después usted, ¿a quién presenta?
Nadie más.
tengan traducción simultánea que vayan a buscarla, a no ser que hablen
1, 2,
ruso.
3.
Please get hold of the headsets if you need them.
The UNESCO Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize Ceremony.
Tenemos el honor de llamar aquí para conducir esta ceremonia a nuestra...
An honor for us to call a colleague from Mexico, this journalist Carmen Aristegui.
And while Carmen is coming on stage, please let me ask for a public acknowledgement and applause to a former laureate of this prize, Khadija Ismailova, and all former winners who are also watching online and looking at us. This is for you. You're in charge.
Gracias, gracias, gracias.
Thank you and welcome to this moment of this summit. It is such an important moment. I want to welcome you all to the World Press Freedom Award UNESCO Guillermo Cano. It is a tribute, it is an acknowledgement to a great Colombian journalist that we all remember and who has become a model in the world on freedom of expression, journalistic rigor, and as we know, was murdered. Mr. Guillermo Cano was murdered in his country in the hands of the organized crime. So remembering him, remembering this journalist, his history, we award this World Award for Press Freedom, and it is awarded in such an important day like today. This award honors a person, an organization, or an institution that has made a renowned contribution to defend or promote freedom, press freedom around the world, especially when they do so against danger. And that is the main purpose of this award, a journalistic award, the UNESCO Guillermo Cano Award. It honors Mr. Guillermo Cano, who was murdered in Bogotá. He was the director of the El Espectador newspaper, and he was murdered in December 1986. We invite you all, whether you're following online or whether you're here to join our social media. UNESCO wants to invite you to use the hashtag World Press Freedom Day, and it is a way to join efforts and motivation to celebrate and to make world press freedom recognized around the world. I am honored to welcome the granddaughter of Mr. Guillermo Cano. She's a journalist as well, and we will ask her a few words to speak about this award, and we want to greet Maria Busquet de Cano, who was not able to join us, but she is following remotely, and her granddaughter, Maria Jose Medellin Cano, is here with us. So welcome, Maria Jose, if you can join us on stage. Good afternoon, everyone. 4 months ago, we celebrated 35 years since Guillermo Cano Isaza was murdered, and although time goes by, his memory is intact. He devoted his life to journalism and freedom of expression and made him a witness of history and a leader for the generations after him. He spent 34 years as the director of El Espectador, showing the ups and downs of a country that tends to repeat their bad news. But he was committed to informing in a nation with nonstop conflict, and he built his character on the character of his newspaper. He was devoted to fighting those voices. 34 years leading a newspaper showed us the key as to why we do what we do. To be aware on the value of facts, our credibility as journalists, and the commitment that we have towards a society that needs urgently accurate information, informed information, and providing context to win over misinformation and fake news. It was only 34 years, and we would give everything for him to have been here for longer, but we are defending and we are celebrating his legacy and his courage. We are also celebrating the Belarusian Association of Journalism. It is a good example of an association amid war and bullets. My grandfather, Guillermo, would know that in the times where the media is at risk, the support of the international community is essential to find a way to overcome censorship. My grandfather in 1955 was a witness of the closure of El Espectador when the dictatorship regime of Gustavo Rojas Espinillas ordered the shutdown after imposing a fine that was too high to pay. And he did the same in other media outlets in Colombia. My grandfather and the entire family managed to found a new media outlet, and they called it The Independent, raising the flags of El Espectador with the conviction of continue to inform and defend freedom of expression, and they won the battle to censorship, and El Espectador started to circulate again as it is doing it now. We applaud his courage. We applaud the courage of the Russian Association of Journalists, and we value the work of their 300 journalists before the global audience. We wish you to go ahead with your independent journalism and your research and investigation. We will continue fighting for the truth, not to cause the shutdown or media outlets, censorship, imprisonment of journalists, and of course, their death. The Guillermo Cano Foundation wants to acknowledge the General Director of UNESCO, Audrey Osule, for so many years devoted to this work and commitment to this award. Thank you for your inspiration and commitment and support to journalists around the world. Thank you. Thank you, Maria Jose. You can take a seat. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your words. And I want to welcome on stage the members of the jury those of you who are present physically here, and we greet those of you joining us remotely. Alfred Lela from Albania, President of the jury, please come on stage. Mai Azago from Liberia, she's online. She's joining us remotely. Online, we have Zainab Saini, a journalist from Iraq who has participated in this international independent jury for the World Global Award. Yaosumi Sawa from Japan is also joining us online. Greetings. Welcome, Margot Smith, representing the Netherlands, and Mauricio Weibel from Chile, who is also part of this international jury. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And I will ask Alfred from Albania to provide a few words and observations explaining the reasons why this global award, the UNESCO Guillermo Cano Award, was granted to the Association of Belarus, the Journalists Association of Belarus. You have the floor.
Clothing. I lost my luggage, so I'm on borrowed clothes. So, dear esteemed dignitaries and dear colleagues, first of all, I want to say how honored I am to be here as the chair of the jury. For the past 2 years, we haven't had a chance to meet because of the COVID-19. It wasn't just the pandemic itself that served as an extra obstacle for what we journalists do. To the prior difficulties of fake news agendas, post-truth conveniences, and propaganda eagerness, here came a new territory for us when governments and politicians got even more control of the information flow. Little did we know that the worst was yet to come. Since February, now we face another war of the worst kind, with a combination of conventional and unconventional methods. Vladimir Putin of Russia has attacked Ukraine, and with it, many values and beliefs we agree upon and cherish. It is in this context that the Guillermo Cano jury of UNESCO awards this year's recognition, because now it is not only about press freedom, but about all freedoms. Our colleagues in Russia know this better than anyone. Dmitry Muratov, a previous winner of Guillermo Cano Prize, knows this also. So do our colleagues in Ukraine, who might have to drop the pen and pick up a gun. That's why our selection of this year's Guillermo Cano makes me, us of the jury, proud. We tell the world that we do our own part for the liberties, freedom of the press included. We also say that those under oppression and persecution are not forgotten or left behind. Thank you.
Gracias. Gracias, Alfred.
Thank you for your message. And I want to greet Audrey Arcelay, UNESCO Director General, and I will ask Atafik Rimasi to join us on stage for some observations and recognition in this ceremony. Welcome, Tobik. Thank you for being with us.
International jury, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. I would like to start by thanking Anna Maria Busquets de Cano for being with us today, but also to thank Maria José Medellín Cano for your great effort to celebrate and ensure that the memory of their husband and grandfather, Guillermo Cano Isaza, continues to live on. For those of you unfamiliar with his work, Guillermo Cano was a brilliant Colombian journalist and editor. He was also director of the newspaper El Espectador. He fought against the drug cartels and their infiltration into national policies. On December 17, 1986, he paid the highest and ultimate price by getting assassinated. I also would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the sponsors of the prize. These include the Democracy and Media Foundation, the Helsinki Sanomat Foundation, the Namibia Media Trust, and the Thomson Reuters Foundation, which has recently joined in as a donor. I also extend my gratitude to Alfred Lela, the president of the International Jury for the prize, and to May Azango, Margot Smith, and Mauricio Weibel, members of this international independent jury, for their hard work. Please convey our gratitude to the other members of the jury who couldn't be with us today. At a critical time for humanity, the need has never been stronger for professionals who are committed to their mission to report the news. This year's laureate is in many ways different from the former ones. In fact, the jury selected to award an individual, not an individual this time, but rather a group of journalists, the Belarusian Association of Journalists, which has been standing actively and publicly to protect the journalists in Belarus. It was founded in 1995 and includes more than 1,300 members working for a wide range of media. Andrei Bastunets, who is with us here today, has been the chairperson of this association since 2015. The association was formally liquidated in August 2021 by order of the Supreme Court of Belarus. Nowadays, standing up for press freedom is more important and more difficult than ever before. You and the members of the association have embodied the courage, engagement, and commitment of independent journalism in the face of countless threats and relentless pressure. But you are also embodying the importance of collaboration and solidarity within the professional journalistic community. We commend your unwavering defense against attacks on journalists and media workers. You and the members of your association are an inspiration to all of us who commemorate today the World Press Freedom Day, especially those who continue committing to facts and who stand for the values and principles of free, independent, and pluralistic media and journalism, as stated in the Windhoek Declaration, which is at the origin of celebrating the World Press Freedom Day. Mr. Bastunets, in my capacity as UNESCO Assistant Director General for Communication and Information, I am very honored to hand over to you, as a representative of the Belarus Association of Journalists, the 2022 UNESCO Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize. This awarding is symbolized by the diploma, which I'll give you in a minute. And I would like all the audience here to join me in expressing through a round of applause our warmest congratulations to you and your association for winning the 2022 World Press Freedom Prize.
Gracias, Tawfiq Jelosi, por sus palabras.
Thank you for your words, and thank you, Andrei Bastunets, President of the Association of Journalists in Belarus, for this UNESCO Guillermo Cano 2022 award. Thank you for your words. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, friends, I'm a bit nervous here, right here, a bit panic-stricken on this day of free world press, when some months ago I was told that we were in the list of nominees, I hardly believed we could win because, as you may have heard today, the organization has been closed legally in August last year. The state, our state, stated that the media the independent press are a cancer and that must be removed. The Belarus Journalists Association isn't a formal structure that has a legal status at present. We're rather a group of individuals, 1,300, aware of our mission, that is precisely to defend freedom of press, to make true information reach society, and that's what we've been doing at present, independent of the formal ban for working. 26 years ago, when our society was created, we had 38 people. 25 years later, when it was closed, we already had close to 1,300 persons. And throughout this period, Belarus journalism worked under a lot of pressure, and in the past 2 years, this pressure increased further. Ultimately, it's impossible to gauge the manner how this pressure was exerted. We had journalists in prison. At present, we have 4 in prison. And it's not only a figure, it's specific individuals. I know most of them personally, and I never thought that the day would come when I must understand that many of my good friends are in prison, such as Ekaterina Andreeva, who was convicted to 1.5 years of prison, but 5 months later, she was convicted due to a TV report of a demonstration. And 5 months before her term ended, she was convicted once again for treason to the state. This means 5 to 7 years in prison. Or Irina Slavnikova, another journalist who was convicted under the article of organizing a street activity and is now convicted again for generating radical organizations. 4 of our media, of our mass media in Belarus, have been declared as radical organizations. All the people registered in the social networks of these mass media may also be accused as radicals and go to prison. In Belarus, we have over 100 of internet resources. Complete groups have been forced to leave the country, and some have gone from one country to another. For example, those who had first gone to the Ukraine after the war started there had to pick up their luggage and try to go elsewhere. Now, I would like to remind you and express my appreciation to the Ukraine journalists that are fulfilling their task in spite of this war triggered by Russia, and in general by all journalists that continue their work in Ukraine in spite of the fact that their lives are at risk. Furthermore, I wish to thank all my colleagues that continue working in Belarus. They generally say that there is no journalism there. That isn't so. There are whole staffs that are working there, although there are very harsh threats and there is a lot of pressure. However, this award for the Belarus society is a support for all independent journalism, and we have great hopes that something may change. I'm speaking of the people in power. So this pressure decreases within the country. I thank all the people who nominated us and all the members of the jury. I thank the Cano Fund, UNESCO. Thank you all. The Belarus Journalists Society has a saying, and in Russian it would go as follows. We stick to the truth, and we stick together. I will say it in Belarusian.
Gracias, Andrei.
Thank you, Andrei Basnet. Please don't leave, because we'll take a picture if the interpreters help. We're at the end of the ceremony of this important ceremony. I'm sorry, I'm not really hearing her well. Thank you for this message that has touched our hearts. We're at the end. Thank you to everybody who has been here to celebrate free press and freedom of expression, and to acknowledge the courageous work conducted by the journalists in 2022 in this World UNESCO Guillermo Cano Award ceremony. UNESCO has requested we take a picture to close the ceremony. Thank you to the jury, Alfred, Margot, Mauricio. Could the representative from UNESCO come forward also so we can take a picture together? And with this picture, we close the ceremony once again in the memory of a major, legendary journalist, Mr. Guillermo Cano, and for all journalists that at present are conducting their work, honoring this task and activity and profession that is so fundamental for democracy, that is free journalism. Compliments to the winners, and thank you to the jury.
Podemos tomar una fotografía aquí. Si puede Audrey Azul estar aquí. La directora general de UNESCO se suma a la fotografía en este cierre final. Gracias a todas, a todos. Buenas tardes. Felicidades.
We have another session coming up on the role of freedom of expression in promoting peace shortly.
Se viene la próxima sesión, ahora en minutos. La próxima sesión vamos a hablar del rol de la libertad de expresión para
We're going to speak on the role of freedom of expression to promote peace. The more recent Nobel Peace Prizes will be present.
Dale. Hola a todos. Si gustan pueden ir tomando asiento. Vamos a empezar con la próxima sesión.
If you please take a seat, we have our last session. It's not so easy because we have the celebrities taking pictures. Let's see if we reach the cocktail on time, because I didn't get to the coffee break on time.
¿Cuál día empezamos?
So we're going to have a next session now, the role of freedom of expression in promoting peace. And in order to do that and facilitate this session, we're going to have the honor to introduce Jaime Abello Banfi, who's here with us. He's the co-founder and director general of the Gabo Foundation. ¿Dónde está Jaime? Tú eres Jaime. Pero yo...
Pero vamos a una presentación como la gente.
Me está gritando que lo presentemos a Jaime.
Bueno, empezamos. ¿Leo esto?
Jaime.
¿Leemos esto? Sí, hola. Bueno, buenas noches. Como todos sabemos,
Good evening. As you're aware, 6 months ago, Dmitry Muratov and Maria Ressa received the Nobel Peace Award for their efforts for protecting freedom of expression. And this is a precondition for democracy and long-lasting peace.
Freedom Conference is welcoming this session on the role of freedom of expression in enabling peace, in partnership with the Secretariat of the Nobel Peace Summit, here represented by its president, Ekaterina Zagladina.
y para eso tenemos un facilitador, un ayudante especial.
We have a special facilitator from the Gabo Foundation, Nobel Laureate for literature, but he's a well-acknowledged journalist That's why he's with us, Jaime Abello Banfi, in this next session.
Buenas, ya casi noches. Aquí
Good evening here in Punta del Este, and greetings for the people following us online. I'm very moved because Guillermo Cano was one of the best friends of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, somebody who he truly appreciated and with whom he exchanged correspondence. I'm director of the Gabo Foundation, and I want to read you some words that Gabriel Garcia Marquez said 40 years ago when he received the Nobel Award, and in October when he was told by the Nobel organization that he had received the award. He was trying to move forward this project of having a newspaper together with Colombian journalists, and he was working in Mexico because he was in exile at the time. And this was his statement a few days after the announcement of the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't want to be remembered for 100 years of solitude or for the Nobel Award. I was born as a journalist, and I feel more of a journalist today than ever. It's in my blood. Furthermore, I want to have the best newspaper in Latin America, the best in news, the truest, the most accurate, that nobody would ever need to rectify. I think that these words are in tune with the UNESCO message of verified news. Garcia Marquez didn't create that newspaper, but 10 years later, he called me. I was working in the Caribbean, in Colombia, television, and we created what was called the New Ibero-American Journalism Foundation. The first thing he did was to speak with UNESCO. He had prepared part of the McBride report. He had always been related with UNESCO, and they helped us out to begin with this project that is now 27 years old. I was with him 99% of the time. When the Guillermo Cano Award was handed to the Mexican journalist Jesus Cornella. And having said this, I will now hand the floor to the chairperson of the summit of the Nobel Peace Awards, thanking her for co-organizing and calling this session together with UNESCO. Caterina, the floor is yours.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Secretariat of the World Summits of Nobel Peace Laureates. And as the co-host of this panel, I'm really honored to be here at this event, and especially in this session on freedom of expression and peace. This topic for us is directly linked to what we do at the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates. I think that the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates were founded by President Gorbachev in 1999 exactly to give chance to people to express themselves for peace building. Why is that so? President Gorbachev is a visionary, and he was always willing to offer to the world the new vision of more equitable world, of more human world, and he also always said that people are searching for harmony, for peaceful coexistence. I also think that people are born normally very peaceful. And it's like an inborn condition of every human. And in the run of life, humans lose this feeling of peace. And society and the events around just condition the human to believe that violence and war is something that belongs to the world, which is not, it does not. And then people start to look for peace back. And that's a very hard process, because in order to find peace back, the way a child perceives the world as a peaceful place, one needs to come to the truth in himself, to be really in truth with him or herself. And that is very, very difficult, because, and if we look at the lives of Nobel Peace Laureates, who sometimes in very difficult conditions, against any, maybe any benefit, against any conventional truth, or against their own egos or political conveniences, they just made certain actions in order to bring more peace, in order to bring more harmony. I'm not speaking now about historical context, economical consequences of those historical actions. I'm speaking more about the human condition that they were when they took certain decisions. And when we speak with young people, we say each Nobel Peace Laureate represents a very strong characteristic which she or him expressed in an action in order to bring more peace and harmony. Again, sometimes not thinking of own benefit or of the benefits of own politics, whatever. And we think that the world Nobel Peace Laureates, they exactly represent this freedom of expression, because they were free to express their inner peace and bring it to the world. So the World Summits of Nobel Peace Laureates were exactly done for this, in order to share these experiences of Nobel Peace Laureates, to bring forward their knowledge, in order to activate young people, to encourage the civil society to go forward, to build peace, because we are humans who are able to create the world we want to live in. And we know that it's not only about speaking, like these conferences, our summits are also trying to touch the ground and connecting, to connect people, governments, NGOs, scholars, youth. I think that the freedom of expression is the basic start of any action. So, so what you're doing here is also important for us, because once the thought or an idea is expressed, it becomes an action. And if it is a peaceful thought, then it becomes a peaceful action. And of course, it's important also to see how these actions are affecting people, societies, and we always try to focus on focus the attention of young people, of civil society, that the actions shall be constructive and positive. They of course need to bring positive changes, the same as Nobel laureates did in their lives. I'm very, very honored to be here. Thank you for giving me a chance to share with you our experience. I'm also really happy that here we have two.
Un mensaje del presidente Gorbachev.
Yes, also,
Por
yes.
favor.
This has been.
We have President Gorbachev's message. Ha sido una sorpresa.
So the message from President Gorbachev.
Adelante.
Sí. Dear friends, I am pleased to be a part of this very important gathering of the UNESCO Global Conference dedicated to World Press Freedom Day. The Nobel Committee's recent awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to two courageous journalists, Dmitry Muratov and Maria Ressa, highlights the significance of this conference. The Nobel Committee's decision emphasizes the importance of the media in the modern world. I have known Dmitry Muratov for more than 30 years. We have become friends. I can attest that he is an honest, courageous, responsible, and caring person. His commitment to fight for truth and justice is deep and sincere. I feel certain that Maria Ressa possesses these admirable qualities as well. By awarding them the Nobel Peace Prize, the Nobel Committee highlighted these qualities so necessary in the profession of journalism. I was guided by these same principles in the 1980s while launching the process to lead the Glasnost, which means openness, and Perestroika, which means restructuring. A foundation of Glasnost, openness, which relates to transparency in governance, is the freedom of speech. Glasnost is the right of people to know the truth. It's required for citizen involvement in bringing about necessary changes in government. Glasnost was my main assistant in the progress achieved then, although there were and there are still more than enough critics of Glasnost. My opinion has not changed. In addition, I would like to welcome the initiative of UNESCO and the Secretariat of the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates to organize a special program for young journalists from all around the world within the framework of this conference. Mikhail Gorbachev, Moscow, April 2022.
Gracias. Gracias.
Thank you, Ekaterina, President of the Nobel Peace Prize Summit. And we will now welcome the two panelists who are joining us online. My fellow countryman, Nobel Peace Prize winner 2016, Manuel Santos, and Amirat Washamawi of the Tunisia Dialogue Partnership, who were awarded with the prize in 2015. Thank you both for joining us. But before, let me just say that a year ago, when we celebrated the World Press Freedom Day, the person who was awarded the Guillermo Cano Award and who participated in this conference was none other than Maria Ressa, one of the two winners of the latest Nobel Peace Prize. Maria is not able to join us today because she's actually flying. She's on board of a plane, but let's remember her intervention.
From the winner of the 2021 UNESCO Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Award. It is my honor to introduce Maria Ressa.
This is for Rappler and all Filipino journalists who, despite the increased risks just to be able to do our jobs, continue to hold power to account. In less than 2 years, the Philippine government filed 10 arrest warrants against me. In 2017, government propagandists tried to trend the hashtag #ArrestMariaRessa. They failed, but they kept at it, and 2 years later, I was arrested twice in a little more than a month. What happens on social media doesn't stay on social media. Online violence leads to real-world violence. And yet, studies have shown that lies laced with anger and hate spread faster and further than really boring facts. The social media platforms that deliver the facts to you are biased against facts, biased against journalists, biased against meaningful conversations. The more you have, the more you must risk, because silence is complicity. Whether you're at the UN, or heading a nation, or a corporation, or you're a politician, human rights worker, a journalist, or a citizen, fight and win your individual battle for integrity. At stake is our collective global future. Please, act now. Courage on.
Qué bien. Ahora recordemos a...
Great. We will now introduce Dmitry Buratov. He was also awarded the Nobel Prize, and he needs no introduction. But as I said, what we need to remember is the very significant work that he has done for journalism in Russia, of course, on hold right now. And the first computers and devices for the Novaya Gazette media outlet were funded in part to a donation from Gorbachev and his Nobel Peace Prize. Mr. Gorbachev has sent a video.
Коллегам. А это их миссия. Когда правительства все время улучшают прошлое, журналисты пытаются улучшить будущее. Поэтому это премия всей настоящей журналистики. Это премия моим погибшим коллегам и друзьям из «Новой газеты» Игорю Домникову, Юрию Щекочихину, Анне Политковской, Насте Бабуровой, Стасу Маркелову, Наташе Истемировой. Это премия и живым моим коллегам, сообществу, которое продолжает выполнять профессиональный долг. Как противостоять пропаганде, когда она занимается тотальным облучением, таким же, очень похожим на радиоактивное облучение всех людей, которые попадают под ее действие? При нынешнем развитии различных медиасредств всякая война начинается задолго до, собственно, военных действий. Массированная пропаганда милитаризма, ненависти, насилия и прочей мерзости ведется сильно заранее для того, чтобы подготовить народа, совершить предпродажную подготовку войны. Общество обязано, должно научиться распознавать эти опасные признаки. За ними непременно последуют вооруженные действия. Это нельзя списывать на разницу мнений, свободу демократических высказываний. Нет, это пропагандистские манипуляции автократов. На самом деле подобная пропаганда постепенно отравляет и усыпляет сознание обывателя. Создание некогда нормальных, а теперь уже отравленных радиацией пропаганды граждан. У них начинают возникать застаревшие фобии, комплексы, болевые точки, неудовлетворенности, обиды. Там свой личный статус и, допустим, невысокий уровень жизни они начинают объяснять тем, что соседи виноваты в этом. Эту болезнь нельзя высокомерно не замечать. Это страшная, опасная болезнь человечества. Именно поэтому крайне важна и является определяющей роль качественных медиа. Еще один из верных способов, признаков приближающегося конфликта и приближающейся войны – это давление властей вплоть до закрытия тем СМИ, которые проводят неофициальную точку зрения, которые рассказывают концепции, отличные от официальных, и такое происходит непременно в преддверии войны. Так как же противостоять, какое противоядие есть у тотальной пропаганды? В номере газеты перед ее временным закрытием, это заключительный номер перед остановкой газеты, мы опубликовали памятку, созданную на основе исследований Артура Пронсби и Анны Морелли. Я приведу вам несколько тезисов о том, как устроена пропаганда, и теперь вы сможете спокойно смотреть телевизор, и даже российский. Тезис первый. Всегда надо утверждать: мы не хотим войны. Это означает, что враги нас ненавидят и хотят напасть на нас первыми. Тезис второй. За все несет ответственность другая сторона. Даже если первыми напали мы, к этому нас привели встречные шаги противника. Третье. Лидер противоборствующей стороны – сущий дьявол. Его надо персонифицировать. Образ врага в глазах своих граждан – это важнейшая задача. Враг использует всегда запрещенное оружие, мы только случайно. Наши потери незначительны, потери врага огромны, реальные потери сейчас установить не представляется возможным. Наша миссия священна. И последний тезис. Предателем является любой, кто ставит под вопрос сообщения государственных СМИ. Если вы знаете эти несколько тезисов, повторю, вы смело можете смотреть любой телевизор. Помните, там, где начинается пропаганда войны, война будет непременно.
This contribution of Dmitry Buratov on the relationships between power, propaganda, and freedom of expression are a good way to open up the floor for Juan Manuel Santos, who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2016 while in office, for all of the efforts that he made for building peace in Colombia and to sign the peace agreement in my country. But before being a politician, he was a journalist himself. He was a publisher. He worked for El Tiempo. And the question that we want to ask you is whether if being a journalist was helpful to you when you were in politics. So now that you were on the other side, so to speak, and you became president. Good afternoon. And first of all, let me greet Ekaterina, all of my colleagues. I was asked to speak English, so I will now switch to English so I can answer your question. But still, I want to stress what you said, Jaime, at the beginning. Guillermo Cano was a very close friend of my family. We were rivals, but we were very close friends. I know Ana Maria, his wife, is in Uruguay, and I want to greet her especially, send my love to her. And I am happy that you are the moderator, Jaime. I've known you for so many years, and I was witness of what you created and how you still run the Gabo Foundation. Gabo and I were also very close friends.
Trying to answer your question. How did my journalistic background help me as a politician, as a head of state? Well, in many ways. Having been a journalist helped me to understand much better the role of the media. Politicians usually complain about the role of the media because they want the media only to project the positive outcomes, the positive news. Well, that is precisely what the good journalist should not do. I was taught that journalists should be like a watchdog. If everything is okay, the dog moves its tail and maintains asleep. But if something is wrong, the journalist should show it, and that's when the dog starts to bark or to bite. So I understood very well the role of the media, and that helped me very much as a politician, as a head of state. It helped me to tolerate much more criticism. Usually politicians don't like criticism. Heads of state don't like criticism. But when you have been a journalist, you understand that criticism is very important. And I always assimilated to having a shower of cold water, which would wake me up and make me realize many things that I had not realized before. So that is another aspect that helped me very much as a politician, as a head of state, by being a journalist. Also, it is extremely important to be well informed. And usually heads of state have people that protect him and they think they do that by not giving them, the heads of state or the important politicians, the bad news. And the effect is the contrary. That is a very bad way to protect a head of state. So good journalism, what it does is maintains the politicians and the governors connected to the people, connected to what is really happening in the real life outside the palace or outside the presidential house. Also, heads of state usually are very much disconnected, and they start losing something which is extremely important to lead, which is being able to hear the people, understand their feelings, their hopes, their worries. That is called empathy. And if you lose empathy, you lose connection with the people, then you lose your ability to lead. And journalism and being a journalist taught me very much how to always maintain not only the connection with the people, but hearing both sides of any story. And when you hear the different versions of the same story, you will take better decisions. So I think that having been a journalist for me was very, very useful as a politician, as a minister, and as president of my country.
Hello. Muchas gracias,
Thank you, President Santos. Let's change hemisphere and continent. Let's go to North Africa and the Arab world. Mrs. Bouchamaye, welcome. She is leader at union level. She is leader of the civil society in Tunisia, and there is an indicator in the 2030 agenda that is specific to the issue of the role played by key civil society agents, and that is journalists, unionists, and the people who work for human rights, trying to have the attacks against them cease. I would like to ask her about the role of freedom in the media to meet the objectives of leadership, particularly at union level, but also the role that is generally played by the people who are striving for freedom and rights in countries. What is the function and the context of free media to achieve this?
Adelante.
The floor is yours.
It's okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really sorry that I can't be with you today. I'd like to congratulate, the laureate, this Belarusian Association of Journalists. Congratulations for this UNESCO award. I'm so happy, to represent the civil society, the Tunisian civil society, and I think for our role, what we did in Tunisia during this Arab Spring. I think why we succeeded because people they trust on us, and we worked with the media. As we have really a free media in Tunisia, freedom, expression. People they are able to say everything. They are able to criticize, and for us, we work like a kind of partner with the journalists. My background is entrepreneurs. I was the president of Tunisian business owners, but I had a very, close relationship with the journalists, as they were, kind of the way how they can expand the information, how they can inform people, how they can spread this information through, Tunisian. And for us, and for me, and for all Tunisian, and for all people that are looking for freedom, for justice, I think it's very important to have this kind of journalists that they are aware that democracy has a strong connection with the press freedom. That's why, for me, it's very important to have, journalists. They are independent, and they have to, sometimes to filter some information to give the right information to people. The role of freedom media is very important. If we have the right message, so we can listen to us. They can listen to us, and we can also have the right information. If we have this dictatorship society, it was for us difficult, to criticize, to give our point of view. That's why for us, what we did is we worked really with this with journalists, they were like kind of our voice to say to the Tunisian citizens what we did. During this national dialogue, and. In the other side, also as an entrepreneur, I think the media, they have this role also to report, and to share some data, and to give the right information. Sometimes we are, as a business owners, sometimes we are impacted because for some misinformation, or just for some interest, but we have to trust on our ability to give the right information. And I think the role of the civil society is very important to push, and the governments, to have this freedom, because this freedom, when media and the journalists, they have their freedom, they can, express our points of view, and they can tell the truth and the reality to people, and it's a kind of a way to show that really this country is a democratic one. That's why I think, and I trust on the role of journalists, and I believe that with them we can construct and we can build a democracy in any countries. For sure, sometimes we have to deal with some kind of regimes, and sometimes we need also to know from where we'll have the right information, the correct one, and not and to try to understand why we took this decision. But I think the journalists and the media they represent this force to be this force to represent all citizens and to give the right information to citizens. Just to conclude in this, for this point, to say that for us in Tunisia, I think what we achieved till now is something really immeasurable in such conditions in these Arab countries, that we are now a very democratic country where we can say everything what we want to say, and people they have also to be aware to choose the right information.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Mrs. Bouchamawi. Now, I want to tell you that we have a contribution from another laureate, 2013, Shireen Evadi, judge and lawyer in Iran, who has worked for human rights and democracy in her country with a wide legal experience in cases related with the media and in the defense of journalists. Let's hear her.
هر کس که قلمی برای نوشتن و حلقومی برای حرف زدن داره باید بگوید بس کنید، ظلم به کلمات را بس کنید.
Okay.
دموکراسی تا ملتی آزاد برای بیان خواسته های خود نباشد نمیتوان دموکراسی را مستقر کرد. از سوی دیگر آزادی بیان تضمینی است برای جلوگیری از ظلم و فساد افراد قدرتمند و در این ارتباط رسانه‌ها سهم مؤثری دارند و از همین رو متوجه مسئولیت خطیر خبرنگاران می‌شویم. قلم آنها تیزتر از هر شمشیری است و از همین رو دیکتاتورها سر ستیز با خبرنگاران و رسانه‌های مستقل دارند و خبرنگاری یکی از مشاغل پرخطر در کشورهای غیر دموکراتیک است. در کشور من ایران در حال حاضر بیش از 200 نفر خبرنگار، نویسنده، مترجم و وبلاگر فقط به جرم نوشتن در زندان هستند. و از این رو برپایی جلساتی که آزادی بیان و لزوم حمایت‌های قانونی را در سطح ملی و بین المللی برای حفظ جان و آزادی خبرنگاران رو یادآور میشه حائز اهمیته. فراموش نکنیم آزادی بیان هم مرزی داره. مرز اون طبق کنوانسیون حقوق مدنی سیاسی ممنوعیت برای تبلیغ جنگه. اما در این حال متوجه باشیم نبایستی تبلیغ جنگ آنچنان تفسیر وسیعی رو در بر بگیره که نتوان از افراد مذهبی و مقدس و پیامبران انتقاد کرد و دادگاه‌ها میبایستی تبلیغ جنگ که ممنوع است به گونه‌ای تفسیر کنند که بیشترین آزادی رو برای نویسندگان و خبرنگاران ایجاد بکنند. آزادی بیان پایه و اساس تمام آزادی هاست به عنوان مثال بدون آزادی بیان آزادی مذهب و عقیده هم معنا نداره. وقتی که کسی نتواند مذهبش رو بیان بکنه و فقط در دلش عقیده‌ای داشته باشه، دیگه آزادی عقیده‌ای و مذهب معنا نداره. بایستی پاس بداریم آزادی بیان را که ستون اصلی صلح پایدار است در هر جامعه‌ای. موفق باشید.
Vamos a hacerle la
Well, let's make the same question to the President Santos, and with that, the question is as follows. Which are your specific recommendations or practical ideas to further promote freedom of the press and freedom of expression? Is there any call for action you would like to make? Because of the global Freedom of the Press Day, I first invite Widat and then Mr. Santos. The floor is yours, Widat.
I mean, I think it's very important that the news has been an important source of information, and the free press is therefore one of the foundation of a democratic society. That's why people, they have to rely more and more on papers to keep and to have all the information. I think it is very important to train journalists. They have the responsibility, I mean, to inform people about the right and the truth. Also for the government to respect the guarantees of free expression and press freedom, because it's a way of democratic countries. But also, I think what is very important and the role of this freedom, I mean, press freedom, is also to control the level of corruption. That's the way how they can also be kind of observer, and they can also relate all the information about corruption, about anything which is not good for the citizens. And I think what is very, very important now is to take care, because we have rapid development of the internet, and sometimes we have to take care of the fake news. Sometimes that's why we need to continue really to benefit from this social media, to connect people, to exchange the information, and also to inform us what is happening everywhere, and without having any constructed ideas. I think, and what maybe we do need is to reduce the restriction on the internet, and so that we can leave this freedom of expression. My recommendation is we need to have, strongest and we have independent media, independent editorial, and also we have people that they trust, that they together we can build, democracy, we can build faster. And on the other side, we have to protect journalists, particularly in areas when they have to defend, the democracy, when they have to defend people, and to protect them and to give them all, the ways so they can work, so they can, without any problems, and they can also be the voice of others. The governments have, all the governments they have a very important role to play, and because particularly for this, this information and for the public opinion. So I think for the governments, they have also to control not the way, but just to protect some personal information, and to protect against attacking people. And for me, it's very important to really to push to have this freedom everywhere. We need very professional journalists. We need people that they have to listen, they have the choice also to listen or to read what they want to read, and also to have this legal frame. I mean, to protect each one of us, to protect. Journalists, and to protect listeners or the readers. And maybe my last recommendation is we have to defend and we have to protect journalists everywhere. So that's why we need, to always to have this ability to be free to say what we think with respecting each other, and maybe my dream is to have more women journalists, so we can also have this equality and this gender equity everywhere. So I think it's just a way sometimes to have even some debates, women and men in the same, together, just because we need to listen to the voices of women. So it's a call to have more women as journalists, and to have more young people to defend the democracy and to defend the freedom, and they to well use the social media and all this new technology for good work for all of us. Thank you so much for this invitation, and hopefully I will have the free press free everywhere and the freedom everywhere, and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Widat Bouchamawi, for sharing your ideas and being present live in this session. And now, President Santos, it's your turn.
Thank you, Jaime. And I want to start with an anecdote. 40 years ago, I was a member of the Freedom of the Press Commission of the Inter-American Press Society. And I went with my brother to Nicaragua. The Sandinista revolution had just been successful. And when we arrived in Nicaragua to defend the newspaper whose director was Violeta Chamorro from the censorship that she was being obliged to have, we were approached by the real revolutionaries who said Ortega and his regime is a farce. They're corrupt. They don't want democracy. They want autocracy. And they gave us a lot of examples. And we came back to Colombia, wrote 4 chronicles, and we won with those 4 chronicles the first King of Spain prize in journalism. What is a paradox is that we reread what we wrote 40 years ago, and it's exactly what is happening today in Nicaragua. It's a regime that is corrupt, that is censoring the press. The newspaper of the Chamorro family has been censored, closed, and the daughter of Violeta Chamorro is one of the presidential candidates who was put in jail, and she is right now in jail. The other son is exiled. So with this anecdote, what I want to say is that journalists all around the world, as Reza and Dimitri have done, should denounce oppression always, should denounce injustice always, should expose corruption always. That is the most important role that journalism and freedom of expression and freedom of press can have in today's world. Having said that, I must say also that I'm quite worried with what is happening with the effects of the social media in the quality of journalism. Social media was thought of being a sort of a boon to democracy when it started at the start of this century. But what has happened lately with the change in technology, with how it has evolved, it has become more of an amplifier of polarization, of populism, and spreading disinformation. And with the artificial intelligence, the capacity to spread disinformation is practically unlimited. And what effect has that had in the quality of journalism? I remember a good friend of many journalists, and I think he's now a partner in a foundation with Maria Raza, by the name of Mark Thompson. I remember having a conversation with him many years ago about how the social media and the evolution of technology was in a way doing away with the role of the editor and the role of the publisher, the intermediary, and how the headlines and the news was being imposed by what was called the trending topic. That is, I think, a danger for journalism. And today, I would say that one of the big challenges that we have is to maintain the quality of journalism, to maintain the objectivity in the work that journalists do, in defending that magic word that George Washington defended when he said he did not want to be president the third time, in order to preserve freedom and democracy, which is moderation, the counterbalance of the extremes. I think this is the most important challenge that we have in today's world, because if we allow moderation to disappear, democracy disappears, the capacity to do transactions disappears, and autocracies take over, and the freedom of the press will be finished. So the call to action is to support the journalists all around the world, as the Nobel Committee has done by giving the Nobel Laureate to these two very courageous journalists. I think this has to be replicated all around the world by everybody if we want to preserve freedom, democracy, and particularly the freedom of the press.
Thank you, President Santos. And I believe that going back to these humanistic values, moderation, tolerance, and being firm and ethical are a good way to present a tribute to a Nobel Peace Laureate, a great activist against apartheid, Desmond Tutu, South African. We will hear from the Tutu Foundation, his niece, Joy Goma. Nuestra lucha por la libertad. Hay algo, siempre nos negamos a ser considerados menos que humanos. En una situación de injusticia y de opresión, tenemos que tomar lados.
Of justice, or am I on the side of injustice?
Father once said, I wish I could shut up, but I can't and I won't. I echo this very sentiment today when it comes to freedom of the press, as some nations still censor its citizens and ban the press from reporting the truth. I always stand in solidarity with members of the press, and thank you to UNESCO and the Summit of the Nobel Peace Laureates for continuing to commemorate and shine a light on the importance to have a day like Press Freedom Day, so we never forget its role, its crucial role in our society. Muchas gracias por la invitación, Uruguay.
We will now wrap up with a contribution coming from this great River Plate and the painter and human rights activist, Nobel Peace Prize winner Adolfo Pérez Esquivel.
Quiero hacerlo en nombre de los.
I want to do it on behalf of all the peoples in Latin America, and particularly in the name of my brothers and sisters, those who are poor, similar to a small man like myself, those who have no voice, for me to be heard.
A todas y todos los que están reunidos en Uruguay en el Día de la Libertad de Prensa. Esto que luchan, que promueven para que la voz, el pensamiento, la crítica, pero también la construcción de nuestras sociedades escuchen la voz de los periodistas. Y esto es importante para el mundo. También quiero saludar a las colegas, Premio Nobel de la Paz que están presentes. Yo no puedo asistir personalmente, pero sí acompañarles con la mente y el corazón. En este momento tan crítico para la humanidad, que está soportando guerras en distintos países, una guerra en especial de Ucrania con Rusia, y que hay que pedir a todos y todas en el mundo que hagan sus esfuerzos para construir la paz. Basta de guerras, basta de muerte de periodistas que día a día tienen que soportar por defender la libertad. Soportar, y muchos dieron su vida para dar vida, porque estos periodistas que dieron la vida para dar vida permanecen entre nosotros y nosotras. Yo simplemente quiero acompañarles, y es muy importante la reflexión en el Uruguay, aquí, al otro lado, como decimos nosotros desde Argentina y Uruguay, del otro lado del charco, la hermandad con el pueblo uruguayo. Y quiero recordar también a dos uruguayos que siempre los tengo presentes. Una, Perico Pérez Aguirre, es hermano jesuita luchador por la defensa de los derechos humanos y la libertad de expresión. Y el otro, ese gran compañero de caminada, Eduardo Galeano, que con su voz, su pensamiento, y que también hizo periodismo, Eduardo. Y él siempre dice que la vena de América Latina continúan abiertas, pero yo creo que en este momento son las venas de la humanidad que continúan abiertas. Tanto dolor, tanta sangre y también tanta fuerza y tanta esperanza de que otro mundo es posible. Y a través de eso, de ese otro mundo es posible, tenemos que ver este mundo con esperanza. Necesitamos de la resistencia cultural, de la información veraz, la información que construya, no que destruya las mentes. Muchas veces hablo del monocultivo de las mentes, o del pensamiento único, que muchos medios de información tratan de fomentar. Pero no, hay otra realidad. Es ese periodista, ese hombre y mujer que con su palabra siembra la libertad. Así que les envío un fuerte abrazo solidario y les deseo mucha fuerza y mucha esperanza. Y como decimos en América Latina, hasta la victoria siempre.
Cada uno.
Each of these messages has been very powerful. We want to thank Nobel Peace Laureates for participating and also stress the message of the Norwegian Nobel Peace Prize Committee that freedom of expression is a condition for democracy and long-lasting peace. Thank you, Katerina Saglatina, the chair of the Secretariat, and I will hand the floor over to you for your closing remarks. Thank you very much.
To personally see President Santos and Mrs. Wided. I really thank for your presence here with us. Yo quisiera clausurar en español.
I would like to switch to Spanish, and I want to thank. I'm not great at it, but I wrote it down. But you're good enough. Thank you to all participants. It's been very interesting and very inspiring to learn your opinions about freedom of expression and peace. Since we have President Santos here and Jaime Bello with us, the director of the Gabo Foundation, I want to close saying the words of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the greatest writer in Colombia, when he was awarded the Nobel Literature Prize. Dear friends, I want us all to work together to make a new era a reality, a new utopic era where no one gets to decide for others, even the way we die, where love becomes real and happiness is possible, and where the races condemned to 100 years of solitude can finally find their second chance on Earth. We should defend freedom of expression to reach this second chance that humankind deserves. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for following online. And let me remind you that tomorrow we will begin our second day of this World Press Freedom Day. Thank you.
Bueno, si pueden, no se vayan todavía. Va a tocar la orquesta del Sodre. Me acaban de anunciar. Que están entrando ahora.
We will now see the performance of Sodre. I'm sorry that we didn't know they were here.